Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday. Today, definitely a busy day in the WCNC Charlotte Weather Center. Seeing some crazy stuff online, not just in terms of flooding, but also crazy conspiracies about Helene, but we'll get to that. I'm just going to say this really quick. Um, Helene was not an engineered storm. I'm seeing some stuff about that. Some flashes on radar. They're thinking that somebody manipulated it to move in a different place. That's probably range folding from things being in the way or beam blockage. It's a normal radar occurrence. Oh, it is Saturday. Happy Saturday. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what day it is. It's been a long week. Before we start the local forecast, I do want to read this update that NCDOT just posted on Twitter. Um, actually 27 minutes ago. They're saying as of this morning, 400 roads remain closed in North Carolina. All roads in Western North Carolina should be considered closed. So they do not want people out on the roads. They want you to consider all of those roadways in Western North Carolina closed. They're also trying to remind people that as crews work to clear and inspect roads and bridges, please give them room. So there's that. Okay, let's talk about what's happening with the local or the most recent updates that we have from the National Weather Service. Just got an update, and they are replacing some of the flash flood emergencies with just regular flood warnings. So that is for parts of Burke and Caldwell counties. It looks like in McDowell counties too. The county or the emergency management still felt like it needed emergency still apply to the event, which of course it does. So we're just making sure if you got that update, we're still under the flash flood emergency for areas in Watauga, Ashe County, but for parts of Burke and Caldwell and McDowell, you might have gotten an updated alert to your phone as they're moving the flash flood warning to just a regular flood warning. Now, again, that doesn't change the impact. They're just saying that as the flood waters start to recede, it might not be as significant of an impact as it was 24 hours ago. I think that's the only update. I haven't seen any kind of update on about Lake Lure and the dam there. So no updates, at least for now. Could be a good thing that it's holding. It also could be that they're having issues, with communication, which I know has been a major problem, especially on the western side of North Carolina over toward Asheville. So let's get into our local forecasts. The good and the bad. So let's talk about the good. We see some drier conditions heading into this weekend, and this should allow for folks who are horribly impacted by Helene to start the cleanup effort if it hasn't already started. At least it's not additional weather-related issues. They can cause problems on top of what they've already seen. Now, the bad is that we know that flooding is going to continue. So our rivers, our lakes, our streams are going to continue to go up as they're doing releases from Lake Norman, trying to, kind of wait for that water that's coming a little bit further to the north and west. So please just be mindful of that. We will see some showers out there this weekend, and I'm going to break that down for you coming up. But it will not be heavy rain to additionally impact you on top of what we've already seen. So just be mindful of that. Helene is what's called post-tropical now. It is to our west, near the Tennessee and Kentucky, near western parts of Tennessee and Kentucky. And as it moves that way, it's wrapping in some slightly drier air. That's why our dew point was a little bit lower this morning. 61 doesn't necessarily feel pleasant or comfortable, but compared to where we were with all the tropical moisture around, it definitely felt slightly nicer. Went outside this morning to take out Roger, my dog, before coming to work. So here's the remnants of Helene. It is post-tropical. Again, it lost its tropical characteristics. It's over to the west. We're seeing some of that drier air kind of coming in on that southwestern slot. And so that's why we will stay mostly dry today, but there are a few areas that will still see rain. And of course, the areas that do see rain, especially if we see some of those showers in the mountains, which I do think is possible, will be impacted quicker and more aggressively. Our water or our ground is extremely saturated with water. So any water that drops is going to cause the flooding risk to continue. These were just some of the estimated rainfall totals over the past 72 hours. Radar estimates, just remember, are normally on the lower side just because they can't actually quantify, whether or not you're in a valley, a ditch, you're on a mountaintop, that, you had a mudslide. These are just gauges in these certain spots. So if you see a gauge near your house and you have a rain gauge and you're like, well, I got double that, send us a alert. Please send us your reports. We would love to see them. We'd love to pass them along to the National Weather Service. But a really, really significant spot that got hit is right here, right around Pineola, north of Linville Gorge and Linville Falls. And again, this water has to go somewhere, so it's going to continue to stream downstream, and that will eventually move into parts of the Catawba River Basin. Sorry, I thought I had to sneeze. Up in Boone, of course, if you've seen any of the pictures and videos, they had horrific flooding yesterday. Was a major problem on App State's campus. Some areas saw over a foot over the past 3 days, and probably again well over some of these totals. I also will mention that we did lose a little bit of data yesterday from the mountains and foothills, and even portions of the mountains that weren't reading data even on Thursday. So communication issues will probably continue to be an issue there as well. Here's more of the Linville numbers toward Grassy Creek. You can see that a foot, not a foot and a half, and then a little spot too down in parts of Burke County that saw significant flooding there as well. And so that's the reason why we still have some flash flood emergencies still in effect. Again, some of those have been replaced. So if you got a new update of a flood warning, that's replacing your previously flash flood warning. But of course, we still see multiple of these areas. It's going to be Lake James, all throughout the Catawba River Basin, that water will go downstream. We also have Lake Lure that goes into the Broad River, which eventually goes into Cleveland County. So these areas, even further west that got hit hard, could eventually impact us here in the Charlotte area. So please be mindful of this. This is a time where I think the Carolinas and people, around can come together, help your neighbor, check on them, see if they need anything. All of those things, very, very important. And remember, if you still aren't hearing back from friends and family, there is a chance that they are just out. I saw a post a second ago from one of the meteorologists at the at the Weather Channel, who they're one of our partners now, saying there's still standing water all around Biltmore Avenue there in Nashville, and Nashville still has no cell service, internet, water, or power for the most part. So again, it could just be a lack of a way to communicate. Today, locally here in Charlotte, we are seeing sunshine now. We will see a few more clouds stream in as we go throughout the day, and it will be mostly after about 8 p.m. that we see some of these brief showers. They will be the outermost bands of Helene as the storm continues to wrap away from us, because it's just so large. Some of these bands of clouds and a few showers will still be able to move in. This clicker just does not like me today. Come on. It was working fine just a second ago, and now it decides it wants to be cranky. All right, the computer might have stuck. Stand by, everybody. Apologies. Nope, the computer wasn't stuck. It's just the clicker. There it goes. So we see a few showers this afternoon, mostly after 8 o'clock, and then as well as up in the mountains. Unfortunately, overnight heading into early tomorrow morning, there is that possibility of a few more. So just please be mindful of that. I would say there's a 10% chance during the daytime hours here in Charlotte, and about a 20 to 30% chance with that overnight potential after about 8 o'clock. And you will see this reflected if you have our WCNC Charlotte mobile app. Then heading into Monday, kind of depending on exactly what happens tomorrow and the positioning of Helene, we could still see some lingering clouds and lingering showers, but most of this should be wrapped up as we get closer to Tuesday. So overall, the forecast this weekend is not bad. Sunshine now, again, a few showers after 8 p.m., a few more clouds building in overnight as well. Tomorrow morning, we'll have clouds, maybe some patchy areas of drizzle, and then we'll slowly dry out throughout the day. Both days, temperatures reach the upper 70s to lower 80s. I do not want to bog you guys down talking about the tropics, but we do still have to give you an update, because I can't just ignore the fact that there's other areas of interest to watch. While we were focused on Helene, 2 tropical systems actually did form. We had Hurricane Isaac way out in the central part of the Atlantic. It is not a threat to the United States, and it's actually pulling away from us. And then the second one was Tropical Storm Joyce that formed yesterday. If you remember, a few days ago, we were watching a tropical wave that had a high chance of development. It's that same area. So we do have a few additional storms that we'll be watching. Again, Isaac, probably going to be a fish storm for the most part, so we're not concerned about it. I'm definitely watching Joyce just because of its positioning, but it does look like most steering currents have it going out to sea. But then there's 2 more areas. Unfortunately, we have to watch the same area in the Western Caribbean, Southern Gulf of Mexico for a potential tropical wave over the next week and a half. And then secondarily, There's a tropical wave that just formed off the coast of Africa. If you look really closely, you can see Joyce is actually within its little orange shading, and that low also has about a medium chance of development over the next week. So both of those areas definitely having to watch. Next storm name on the list would be Kirk. I just don't, because we've talked so much about Helene and these other two storms formed, I don't want us to jump to Kirk and then people are like, whoa, 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 what happened with the I and the J storm? No one's keeping things secret. No one's doing anything weird. It's just the fact that we were so focused on Helene because we had a Category 4 hurricane making landfall in the U.S. So right now, Isaac is Category 2. Joyce is a tropical storm. Again, Isaac is not an issue. And Joyce right now, just something to watch. Hopefully this update made sense. I wish I had more updates on what's going on in other parts of the Carolinas. But again, right now, I think a lot of it is communication. Please make sure that you are heeding any evacuation warnings, evacuation orders. If you are living across the Mountain Island Lake area, down toward Lake Wylie, I know they were doing mandatory evacuations yesterday after Brad and I got off the air. And then, of course, if your local city, sheriff's office, whatever, tells you not to drive on the roadways, please listen to them and heed those warnings as well. That's really all I have right now is we don't have a ton of significant updates so far this morning. But I just want people to remember, especially if you were not impacted as badly as other areas were, is that this is still our viewing area. And even if it wasn't, we should still care. And secondly, this is a catastrophic and devastating storm for many. It is a once in a generation storm for many folks who hopefully won't have to live through another Helene. And so this is the storm that your children, your children's children will talk about and kind of use as their threshold. For a lot of people in Charlotte, that is Hugo, Hazel, for other parts of the Carolinas, Florence, for significant flooding. And this will be Helene will be one of those storms for a lot of these areas. If you were with us during coverage yesterday, some people in Boone who had lived there for decades said that it was the worst they had seen since 1940. The Great Flood there, we actually got a picture of that. Brad, I believe, posted. And then again, I mean, it could even, revel in 1916, the Great Flood there, which there are books written about that you can find up in the, about the mountain. So it is really hard to fathom or even hard to grasp or communicate the gravity of how horrible this is for these areas in Western North Carolina and the mountains over in Chimney Rock. I mean, it's just awful. So please, everybody, stay safe, stay weather aware. I know it sounds like such a catchy random thing that we say, but we say it because we want you to stay safe and we want you to be aware of what's happening with the forecast, not just here locally, but across the country. There was a ton of people yesterday, social media messaging us saying, I didn't even know a storm was coming. Let's just remember to keep an eye on things, and that way we know how to better prepare ourselves for the impact that these things can cause. I think a lot of people would argue that South and North Carolina and even parts of southern Georgia saw worse damage than even where the storm actually made landfall because of how quickly it was moving and the catastrophic rain that fell, allowing for our rivers and creeks and streams and dams to be impacted. So please stay safe. Keep these folks in your prayers, and hopefully we'll see you back tomorrow morning, Sunday at 6 o'clock for another update on what's going on. And just remember that if you are going to be out and about later, we will have a brief shower potential. So even though the rain isn't expected to be heavy, that can very quickly allow for localized flooding because we have had so much rain the past few days. So just please keep an eye on that. And if you don't have to be out and about, especially in those hard hit areas, please just don't do it. You're taking resources away from emergency officials that could be going to something else. Love you guys. This is a hard storm to cover. Really sad. I was getting goosebumps just talking about the storm yesterday, and I'm really sick to my stomach as to what's happening in Western North Carolina in the mountains. So, not my normal chipper self, but it's just a really bad storm. We never like when this happens. Stay safe out there. Have a great Saturday. I'll see you tomorrow.